last time we were studying the definition of shear flow. So we have studied that the shear flow is the force acting per unit length. So if we multiply the shear stress by the thickness of the element, then we can convert the shear stress into another parameter which is referred as shear flow. So this shear flow concept is very useful concept if we are dealing with thin wall section. Thin wall section means where the thickness of element is very small, just like the channel section, eye section, or angle section. So actually, by using the concept of shear flow, we can perceive the direction of shear flow, distribution of the shear flow over the section, and we can also uh, we will also prove the assumption that the shear flow is uniformly distributed over the entire cross section. So assumption that we have considered for the derivation of the shear formula, what was the assumption that the shear stresses are uniformly distributed over the entire width of the cross section. So this assumption will also be a true only for the thin wall section, or that will satisfy this condition. And we will also see in today's lecture that normally the assumption of uniform variation of the shear stress along the thickness section is not true if we are dealing with the section with higher thickness. So if we are dealing with the thin wall section, instead of representing the force acting per unit area, we can represent as a force acting per unit length by assuming that the force is uniformly distributed over the thickness. Just like we are converting the distributed load into the UDL, or uniformly distributed load, in case of beam. So you might have already studied this in steel structure, or you might be studying in plain reinforced concrete design in this current semester. So we have also studied the concept of complementary stresses. So complementary stresses mean that actually we are computing, we compute the horizontal shear stresses which are acting in horizontal direction. And then we have proved that when at any section we are having horizontal shear stresses, the same point is subjected to the transversal stresses or the shear stresses in vertical direction, which are having same magnitude. And these shear stresses are produced to maintain the equilibrium. And these stresses which are of same magnitude but acting in vertical directions are referred as a complementary stress. So if in one corner you are having the tail of horizontal shear stress, then you will also have the tail of vertical shear stress. So either the head of both vertical and horizontal shear stresses they are meeting at one corner, or their tail they are meeting at one corner. So summation of all vertical shear stresses multiplied by the area of the cross section will be equal to the resisting shear force at that section. So we have already covered this. Okay, next, this derivation you have already studied in mechanics of material, but I would like to discuss it again. So let's suppose we are having a rectangular cross section which is having a significant B value, and height is h. Distance from the neutral axis to the extreme fiber will be h by 2. And in this section, we are interested to determine horizontal shear stresses at a layer which is situated at a distance y from the neutral axis. So if we want to determine the horizontal shear stresses at this layer, so you need to consider the area, partial area either below this layer, this white area, or partial area above the layer, because we will want to apply the equilibrium conditions at this cutting layer. So the stress value with respect to the top area or the bottom area at any layer will be same. So we want to consider the smaller area because our computation will be more convenient in this case. So if we want to consider the partial area above the layer, then y bar is the movement arm of this partial area with respect to neutral axis. So we are having this shear formula. Shear stresses at this layer are equal to V AY over IB. So this is the static movement of area, or first movement of area of this partial area. A prime is equal to B value, because this partial area is equal to this width multiplied by the depth or the height of partial area. So depth will be equal to h by 2 minus this y. So you are having this depth of partial area, which is equal to h by 2 minus y multiplied by b is the partial area. And then this y bar, this will be equal to this y plus half of this depth. That will be distance from the center of the partial area to neutral axis. So y plus half of this depth, which is the h by 2 minus y. So after simplification, you will have this formula. So it means that the shear stress is the function, is the quadratic function of this y variable. So y is variable which is changing from neutral axis to the extreme fiber if we are considering any different layers or any y distance. So it means that the shear stresses distribution or magnitude of the shear stresses will vary parabolically, because if the y will change, then the shear stress will fluctuate as a second degree function of y value. So if you substitute the y value equal to h by 2, it means that you are considering the layer at extreme fiber. So if you are substituting the y value h by 2, so h by 2 square will be h square by 4. So the resultant answer will be equal to 0. So the shear stresses at extreme fibers, they will be equal to 0, because no partial area exists above this outer layer. And the shear stress will be maximum when you will have the minimum value of y, because more will be y value, more will be reduction of this parameter from the total shear stresses. So lesser will be the y value, more will be the answer of shear stress. So y value is equal to 0 about neutral axis or along the neutral axis. So if you substitute y value equal to 0, so you will have this answer b over 2i, and this b value is already cancelled with this b. So you will have h squared by 4 minus 0. I is the moment of inertia of the entire cross section about centroidal x-axis, which will be equal to bh cube divided by 12. So h square will be cancelled with h cube, so you will have only the h value. 12 will go on the upper side. You will divide the 12 and 8 both by the 4. So answer will be 3 by 2 b over bh. So b and h, it is the cross section area. So you can replace with the a value. So here we have proved that the maximum shear stresses in a rectangular cross section about the neutral axis will be equal to 3 by 2 of b over a. 3 by 2 means 1.5. Actually, by Newton's third law, the reaction must be equal to action but in opposite direction. But if we look into this equation, so this tau maximum, this is the reaction or resisting or reactive shear stresses. And V over A, these are the applied shear stresses, force, shear force acting per unit area. So this equation provided this value, this equation indicate that the maximum shear stresses, they are 1.5 times of the applied shear stresses. It means that this equation predicting the resisting shear stresses 50% more than applied shear stresses. So how come this may be true? It means that this equation is giving the wrong answer, and it is, or in other words, it is overestimating the resisting shear stresses by 50%. So it means that even though this equation is giving the wrong answer, but it is giving the value on higher side. So if we are using this stress value, so our results will be on the safer side. But the question arises that how come this equation is providing this resisting stress 50% more than applied stresses? This is due to the wrong assumption. This wrong assumption, second one, the wrong assumption that shear stresses are uniformly distributed over the entire width of cross section. So this assumption, actually this is wrong. So what this assumption says that if stresses at this neutral surface corresponding to this left side, if they are 100, the stress will be remain 100 along this depth. But actual, this will not be like this. Stress will not be remain constant throughout the width. For example, anyhow we know that distribution of the shear stresses will be parabolic over the depth. They will be zero at extreme fiber. They are increasing parabolically and having maximum value along the nodal axis, and they are decreasing on the other side and then become zero here. So if at this layer the stresses are, let's suppose, 25 megapascal. So as per our assumption, stress will be remain 25 megapascal over the entire width along this layer. Similarly, at this point, if the stress is 70, so over the entire width, the stress will be remain 70. If the stress is 100 over here, then along the neutral axis, at any point, the stress will be remain 100. That as per our assumption. So we will discuss that why this assumption is wrong and what is the actual stress distribution in the next slide. But one thing is true that the shear stress will be maximum along the neutral axis. So that's why in case of beam, which is weak in shear, just like the wooden beam, where the wood is weak along in shear along the fiber direction. So if this applied shear stresses, which are maximum along neutral axis, they are more than shear strength of wood in shear, then the shear cracks or the sliding or the shearing will occur along neutral axis, that you can see. So you can see that the sliding or the shear cracks appear along neutral surface or at the point where the shear force is maximum. Okay, this is the limitation of shear formula that we have already discussed. The shear equation shows that the maximum shear stresses are 50% more than applied shear stresses, which is due to the wrongly assuming the uniform stress distribution along the width of section. So actually, we are assuming this rectangular stress distribution. We are assuming that if the stresses at this outer side is 100, then along the entire width, the stress will be remain 100. But actual distribution is this parabolic. It is also concave type distribution or parabolic distribution along the width direction. Shear stresses are maximum at extreme fiber, and when we are moving toward the center, then the shear stress will be lesser. So what is the reason? Actually, the outer surfaces, they are not confined or restricted from the one side. And on the other hand, if you are taking any material or particle at the inner surface, so this particle is confined or surrounded by the material from all sides. It means that when the beam is subjected to deformation or shearing, so the outer surface will undergo maximum shearing or deformation because there is no confinement and restriction or constraints available at the edges. So if the deformation or the strain will be more at the outer surface, this strain value will be multiplied with the modulus of rigidity G value that will provide us the larger stress. But on the other hand, the material which is on the inner side, its movement or the shearing or deformation is constrained by the material from all four sides. So it will undergo lesser deformation or shear strain. So thus the stress will be less. So actually the actual stress distribution is between this line and above this parabolic portion. But if we consider this uniform stress distribution, it means that the area between this parabola and this straight line is the extra 50% stresses that we are considering wrongly by assuming the uniform stress distribution. So the error will be more if the B value will be more. But if the B value or the thickness of element is very small, then assumption may be true. The shear formula does not give accurate results when applied to the member having cross section that are shorter or flat. Shorter or flat mean where the height is less than B value or these are flat. The difference of stress value is negligible, less than 0.8%. If B is less than h by 4. If thickness is less than height by 4, then the difference between the assumed stress profile and this actual stress distribution will be approximately same. So difference of the error will be 0.8. So it means that for all thin wall sections, for channel section, eye section, and angle section, where the thickness is very small as compared to the length of the element. For example, if the height of the web is 100, then the thickness of web is almost 1/10 of the height of the web, maybe 9 or 10 mm thick. So it means that in that case, we can assume that the shear stresses is uniformly distributed across the thickness. The assumption may be correct. So for thin wall section, if the thickness is very small, so instead of representing force acting per unit area, we represent the force acting per unit length. We assume that force is uniformly distributed across the thickness, but it is only varying along the length. So that's why the concept of shear flow will be more appropriate in this regard. Just like in steel structure design, when you design the weld connection between the flange and the web, so you computed the shear flow at the junction instead of shear stress by multiplying the shear stress with the thickness of the web, because shear flow is resisting shear force per unit length, which is transferred from the flange to web, and you compare with the weld value, which is also force acting per unit length, and then we computed the length of the weld required to transfer the shear forces safely from flanges to web and vice versa. So shear formula is having another limitation. The shear formula also should not be applied across a section that intersect the boundary of member at an angle other than 90 degrees. So simply I can say that shear formula is only applicable for rectangular section. It is not applicable for any circular section or trapezoidal section. But anyhow, if we want to use for trapezoidal and circular section, so it will give us the wrong value, but the wrong value will be on the higher side, which can be used for the computation of stress. For example, if the answer is 100 actual, so the formula for the circular section and trapezoidal section may provide a value more than 100. So that can be used for a safe design. So why this formula is not applicable? He says that we determine the horizontal shear stresses at a layer which is parallel to the neutral axis. He says that if the boundary is not 90 degree to this layer, then the complementary stresses which is acting in the vertical direction will not be equal to the horizontal shear stress. Why? The reason is, for example, we are having this type of this section. So if I want to determine horizontal shear stresses at this layer, so at this layer, if I consider element at the boundary, so the edges are tangent to this, and this tangent surface will be -90 degree to this horizontal layer. So at this point, the tangent to this circle is exactly 90 degree to this horizontal shear stresses. So in this case, I'm considering this element. So let's hold this one. So just assume that we are having this element like here on this one. Maybe like element similarly on the other point. So actually we have computed this horizontal shear stresses which are acting in the down direction. So this vertical shear stresses, actually I supposed to sketch in 3D. So better to have this element. Better to show by this way. So here you can say that this is the horizontal shear stress. So you can assume that this is the horizontal shear stress which is acting along this length, along this red line. And then this is the vertical shear stress component. And this shear stress component will be exactly perpendicular to this one because this boundary is perpendicular to this. So if horizontal shear stresses they are acting in this direction, then vertical shear stresses they are perpendicular to this. So this vertical shear stress it will be exactly equal to horizontal shear stress. But unlike this, if I want to consider the horizontal shear stresses here, like this. So here, at this point, if I draw the tangent, so tangent to this edge surface is not perpendicular to this horizontal layer. It is like this way. I have shown this tangent. So element surface will be parallel to this tangent. If I want to consider the another surface which is perpendicular to this boundary, so this will be the element. So actually, I have computed the horizontal shear stresses in longitudinal direction, this one. In this case, the vertical shear stress component or the complementary stress component will be in this direction, perpendicular to this. But actually the vertical force is acting in downward direction. So we are interested to compute this thing. But by the concept of complementary stresses, we are having this component, star double bar. So this component is not acting in vertical direction. So also this is the component of the actual vertical shear force. So in that case, horizontal shear force stress will not be equal to the vertical shear force. Rather, that will be equal to the component of that force, which means that the formula will not give the accurate value if the edges they are not perpendicular to this cutting layer. However, equation can be used to calculate maximum average value of maximum shear stresses along the neutral surface or at any layer. So important point, if a beam is subjected to cross section is subjected to shear forces or shear stresses, then in that case the plane section will not be remain plane. Plane section will be remain plane only in case of pure bending moment. In case of pure bending moment, when there is no shear force at any section. So whenever a beam is subjected to shear force, so it is subjected to warping or this undulation or this type of the deformation. Why the reason is this one? Because shear stresses, they are distributed or increasing parabolically over the depth. So this layer at different so shear stresses at different layer, they will have different magnitude. So at this layer we are having less shear stresses, at this layer we are having larger shear stresses, and we are having the maximum shear stresses at along the neutral axis. It means that the layer at which the shear stresses will be maximum will undergo larger sliding, and the layer where we are having lesser shear stresses, we will have the less sliding. So it means that all the fiber along the depth, they will slide it or sheared by different magnitude. So if they are being sheared or slided by different magnitude, so that's why we are having this type of the warping. So all fiber, they are not slided by the same magnitude. So if you are bending your notebook or register, you can see that the fiber which are along the neutral axis, they are slided by larger magnitude because horizontal shear stresses are more at that point. So due to the complementary property of the shear stresses develop in a beam act over the cross section of the beam and along its longitudinal plane. So he said whatever the stresses are acting in horizontal direction, same magnitude of the stresses are also acting along vertical direction. So we have also studied here that horizontal shear stresses are maximum along the neutral axis. That may not be true for all cases. In case of triangular and trapezoidal section, horizontal shear stresses may be maximum at location other than neutral axis because the shear stresses, they are also the function of static moment of area and the thickness of the layer also. So for example, we may have static moment of area maximum here, but minimum thickness we may have over here. So if we are taking the ratio of the static moment of area over thickness, so here we are having the larger thickness, but at this point we are having the thickness less than neutral axis. So horizontal shear stresses may be maximum at some distance away from neutral axis. Okay, now we want to extend the knowledge of horizontal shear stresses or vertical shear stresses on thin walled section. Thin walled section or the steel section, just like I have shown the T section over here. They may, I section here, they may be channel section, they may be angle section. So what is the difference of shear stresses in thin wall section from a conventional rectangular section? So actually in thin wall section, the section is comprised of various elements which may be perpendicular to each other or may have different orientation. Just like in I section, so we are having the flanges and we are having web. So this I section is comprised of two type of elements, flanges and web, and both are perpendicular to each other. And further thickness of the flange and web may be different. So here, if we are using the concept of shear flow or shear stresses, so we can assume that shear stresses or flow is uniformly distributed along the thickness direction. Then we need to compute the distribution of shear flow along the length of flanges and along the length of web, and both are perpendicular to each other. So it means that the direction of the shear flow or the shear stress will be different in flanges and web, which can be determined by assuming the cutting layer across the flanges or across the web. So if we want to consider the concept of shear flow, then we are interested to determine the direction of this shear flow or the shear stresses and distribution or the magnitude or the variation of their magnitude along the length of flanges or web. So to derive this or to understand the concept of shear flow, we are considering a cantilever beam. So in this cantilever beam, uh, just you can assume that, let me modify this and make it compatible with this current diagram. So we are having this section. So I just need to modify a little bit just to make this uh, derivation compatible with the calculation that I have shown. So I need to move this line here, and I need to move this line. Yes. Now it may become more compatible. Similarly, that will be more appropriate now. So we can further simplify. Yes, that would be practical. So here we are assuming, further I need to change this. So let's suppose we are having a cantilever beam which is comprised of an I section. So it is subjected to a point load at free end. Maybe it is subjected to UDL load, and this point load is acting upward. So when this load is acting upward, so we will have the tension at the bottom surface and compression on the top. Because if a load is acting upwards, so it will produce this positive bending moment. So this will be distribution of the bending moment, and moment will be maximum at fixed end. So if you want to determine shear force, you want to cut this section at any point. So at any point, the bending moment will be this one, and the resisting shear force, which is V, which is will be opposite to the applied force. So P load is acting upward, so resisting shear force at any section will be in the downward direction. So along the length, we want to consider a differential length or differential portion of this I section. So if I want to consider a differential segment of I section whose length is equal to dz, I am considering the longitudinal direction as a z and cross-sectional dimension as a x and y. So when I consider the differential portion, so the one side is referred as a, both sides they belong to the cutting surface. So we will have the bending moment on right side of this cutting section and also on the left side. So I'm considering this cutting surface on this left side as a section 1 and the cutting surface on the right side as a section 2. So M1 is the bending moment at section 1 and M2 is the bending moment at section 2. So if you want me, so I will also elaborate this. So you can say that this is the M1 and this moment at this point is the M2 on this surface. So M1, this is the moment at section 1 and M2 is the moment at section 2. So M2 is more than M1. Or here, the difference between M2 and M1 is equal to delta M or rate of change of bending moment from section 1 to section 2. So if M1 is equal to M, so M2 may be equal to M plus delta M. So this section is also so we have taken this segment and I have shown this segment over here. So let's consider the differential segment dz. So the thickness is equal to length is dz, just like over here. And on the one side moment is m and the other side moment will be m plus dm. Similarly, V is the shear force on the one side for section 1. So shear force on the other side will be V plus dV. We are assuming that thickness of the flange and the web is constant or is the same, which is represented by T. So let's suppose first of all I want to determine the magnitude and direction of shear flow in flanges. So we are concerned or want to compute two things. Number one, what is the direction of complementary shear force or complementary shear flow in flanges, and what will be the magnitude. So further I have explained here, this beam is subjected to positive bending moment. Positive bending moment means that tension will be at the bottom surface and compression will be on the top. Because due to the applied load, bending moment diagram is positive. So it means that above the neutral axis, all components, flange, top flange and half web will be subjected to compression. And below the neutral axis, we will have the tensile stress or tensile forces due to the applied bending moment. So you can compute these forces or these stresses by sigma equal to my over I. So at any layer, moment of inertia is constant, y will be constant. It means that the bending stresses or the compressive stresses at section 1 will be lesser as compared to the bending stresses or resultant force, compressive force on section 2. So you can see that this is the so this is the F1 force which is acting on this side, and this will be the F2 force which is acting on the other side. F2 will be larger than F1. So F2 can be computed if we know the bending stress on this flank or on this side multiplied by this area. So if we are removing this corner point, I want to determine the horizontal shear stresses at this cutting layer. So just like when we assume the cutting section in the web, so cutting surface is horizontal. But when we want to determine the horizontal shear stresses in the flank, so cutting surface will be vertical because we need to assume the cutting section across the thickness. So here you will see that we will have this corner point, this flank we have cut here. So you will see that I have removed this corner just like here. So this is the cutting layer. So this force is, you can say, F1. This is F2. So F2 is larger than F1. So this question is not in balance. Just to balance this question, we will have a differential force acting here. So F plus dF must be equal to F2, which is F plus dF. So unbalancing force which is produced in horizontal direction at this cutting layer will be this one. So if you will see here, so in this case, this is the unbalancing force which is acting in horizontal direction. So this part is also belong to cutting layer. Sorry, this is, I need to, I have shown this wrong reaction. Yes. So this is the horizontal shear force or horizontal shear stresses or flow acting in horizontal direction at this cutting layer of this plant. So it means that at this corner point, we must have a complementary stress which must be perpendicular to this horizontal direction, but acting on this surface. So this surface is now in the horizontal direction. So the complementary stresses is acting in horizontal direction. So if the arrow is coming toward this corner, then the arrow of complementary stresses will also be coming over here. No force is acting or the shear stress are acting on the top surface because top surface does not belong to cutting part or that is stress free. Just like I have also shown here. So this is the resisting horizontal shear stress and its complementary stress component is coming in this way. So this, if this is the shear flow, then complementary shear flow is in this direction. So if you want to consider in terms of the resisting shear force, then the complementary shear force must be in this direction. So this is the complementary shear force or the direction of the complementary shear flow or shear stresses in this right flank, which is acting toward this side. So there will be no stress on this top surface and across the thickness direction. So if there is no stress on the top surface, so it will have no complementary stresses in vertical direction. So it means that complementary stress or resisting shear stress or shear flow will be acting parallel to the flank and direction will be toward this junction. And similarly, I have considered example over here. I will explain when I will come to there. So we can write, if you are interested to determine the magnitude, you can write the magnitude by the numerical formula or arithmetic formula. Shear stresses or shear flow, you can use any formula. Shear stresses are equal to V over IB into static moment of area, partial area into Y bar, or you can represent this into the integral form. This is the arithmetic form and this is the integral form. Differential area and the moment of differential area, and we can integrate over the portion of the flange. So here we are interested to compute the distribution of horizontal shear flow or the shear stresses along the length of flange. So we have considered a differential area within flange, and this differential area is equal to dA, just like here, dA. So if you want to take the moment of this differential area about neutral axis, so y is the moment arm of this differential area, which is the distance from the center of this area to the neutral axis. We are considering that height of this I section is the distance from the center of the top line to the center of the bottom line, and B is the total width of complete flange. So h by 2 is the distance from the center of this area to the neutral axis. So y bar is h by 2. And this differential area is having the thickness equal to dx. Cross section dimension are dx, x and y. And the height of this area or the depth of this area is equal to total thickness of flange. So if we substitute the value over here, so you will have this expression V over IB. B is the thickness of cutting layer, because we are assuming the thickness along across the flange thickness. So thickness of the cutting layer is the T value. So thickness will always be perpendicular to the element. So this is perpendicular to the B value. In for the case of the web, that is perpendicular to the height of web. So y is h by 2, dA is equal to T into dx. You can take h by 2 as a constant, and this T in area will be cancelled out with the thickness of layer. So we will have this expression, and we can integrate it. Value of the x is ranging from free end tip to this junction, which is from 0 to b by 2. So we are interested to compute the or we want to distribution we want to compute the distribution or variation of shear flow or shear stresses from the free end tip to the junction, or we want to compute the contribution of area from free end tip to junction. So x value will be from 0 to b by 2, because b is the total width. So when we are taking the integration of dx, we are having the x value. So this equation shows that distribution or variation of the shear flow is single degree or linear function of the x value because x is having power 1. So shear stress or shear flow is increasing linearly with the increase of x value from free end tip to the junction, and their magnitude can be determined by substituting the limit value. So at x is equal to 0, x will be 0 at free end tip. If we substitute the x value 0 in this equation, so shear stresses in the flange will be equal to 0. So if we want to substitute the maximum value of the x, which is b by 2, so that is the maximum shear stresses at the junction contributed by half length VBH over 4I. So that is varies linearly from free end tip to this value. So if you want to write this value, so better I would like to write this value also here. You can also convert into shear flow if you want to multiply with the thickness. So I would like to show. So this is the shear flow in flange. That we have coming over here. So that is with respect to half flange. Similarly, you can apply this formula on the other side. You can take the integration from this free end tip to this junction. So since this flange is also situated at the same distance from the neutral axis, it is having same area as of the other flange, then the distribution of shear flow will also varies linearly from 0 to maximum with respect to the flange on the left side. So if you want, you can sketch this shear flow in opposite direction or maybe in the same direction because their magnitude will either be positive or negative. So if you want, you can show this distribution like this also. You can show the distribution of the one flange on the one side and distribution of the shear flow on opposite flange on the opposite side, or you can show the both value on the same side. Both will be accurate because both value will be either positive or negative, so they will have the same answer. Okay, next is, so if you want to consider, let's suppose I have shown. So this is the direction of the shear flow on the right flange, and let me I have shown over here like this. And then This will be the left flange. So on this left flange, you will have this left flange, okay? And you want to consider the cutting layer over here. So cutting section will be this one. So what will be difference? F2, F, they will be same, but actually this DF force is acting on this cutting surface on this side. Just I will remove this, okay? You just consider this is not this force. I will remove in my updated slides. So what I want to prove that actually cutting layer is on this side and direction of F2 and F1 will be same. So it means that their balancing force is produced on this side, which is cutting side. And this surface is also the cutting surface. So if I want to sketch the complementary stresses, because arrow is coming toward this corner, so the direction of the complementary stresses will have the direction toward this corner also. It means that direction of the complementary shear flow or the complementary shear stresses, they are in opposite direction with respect to the right flange and left flange. This is the top left flange. So the direction of shear flow is toward this junction. So that's why if I want to say that I have shown here. So this is the complementary shear force which is acting in the left direction in the right flange, but in opposite flange, left flange they are acting toward the right direction. But they may have same magnitude because their cross section area it is same. And similarly, if you want to consider this bottom, if you cut the flange of the bottom right flange, then for example like this. In this case, what will be the difference? In case of the bottom flange, because I have told you that this beam is subjected to posterior bending moment. Above the neutral axis, we will have compression, and below the neutral axis, we will have tensile forces or tensile bending stresses, which are which I have shown like this way. So these are the tensile forces acting, which are acting away from this body. So this is F2 is positive, and F1 is also tensile to the other side. So this is the bottom left. So F2 is acting in this way, and F1 is on the other side. So unbalancing force dF at this cutting section in the bottom right corner of the flange is acting in this surface. So if I want to sketch the complementary stresses at this corner, so we are having the horizontal shear stresses, tail of the horizontal shear stresses. So we must also have the tail of complementary shear flow or the shear stresses in of this bottom flange, which is acting toward this right side. So if I will show this direction over here, so this one, it means that complementary shear stresses or the direction of the complementary shear flow in the bottom right flange is on the right side. Similarly, direction of the complementary shear force or the shear flow or the shear stress will be on the left side. So what does it mean that direction of the shear flow or the shear stresses or shear force, they are opposite to the flanges with respect to top or with respect to the flange or on the vertical axis. So, but their magnitude will be same if they are symmetrical. So, direction of the shear flow in the top right flange is in the left direction. So in opposite flange, the shear flow will be in right direction. Similarly, direction of the bottom right flange will be opposite to the direction of the shear flow in top flange and also with respect to the left flange. But next question is that how we can perceive the actual direction. So we will summarize this after derivation of this shear formula or shear flow for the thin wall section. Okay, similarly, we are interested to determine the distribution or the direction of the shear flow in web. So we are considering a differential area in the web, and this differential area is having the thickness dy and width t. And we are interested to determine the shear stresses at this layer. And this layer is situated at a distance y from this bottom surface of this plane. So since we are considering that thickness is very small, so difference between center of this plane to this bottom surface, this can be ignored. So the shear stress can be computed by this formula V over IB and static moment of area of all area above the layer. So T is the thickness of the layer. So we can compute this static moment of area above this layer either by considering the entire area as a one unit as a T section or by considering the area by part. We can deal the flange area separately and then we can add the contribution of the web area to the contribution of the flange area by using the principle of moment. Moment produced by component resultant force is equal to the moment produced by summation of the moment produced by the component of the total area. So static moment is of area by part. This is the moment produced by the flange. Area of the flange is equal to B and thickness of the flange. Moment arm of flange with respect to neutral axis will be h by 2, which is the distance from the center of line to the neutral axis, which is mentioned over here. Then we may have area of this remaining portion of the web. Y is the height of the web under consideration of the partial area of the web. If we multiply with the thickness of the web, that is the area. So if we subtract this half y from this h by 2, then we are having distance from the center of this web to the neutral axis, which is h by 2 minus y by 2. So this is the summation of the moment of flange, and moment produced by the partial area of the web is the total moment produced by the entire area above this layer. If we substitute the value here, we are having this expression. So in this expression, we have summarized over here. So if you substitute the y value equal to 0, so y value will be 0 at the junction. So if we substitute the y value equal to 0, this entire parameter will be 0. So shear stresses at the junction of the web will be VBH over 2I. So if you multiply this shear stress by the thickness of the layer, you can convert into shear flow. So there is one interesting thing. If you see this parameter, this is the shear flow at the junction of the web. That is VBHT over 2I, which is the twice of the shear flow that we have computed at the junction with respect to half length. So QF is equal to VBHT over 4I, which is the contribution of the half length. So if you also compute the contribution of the other plant, then the total contribution of the entire plant will be QF multiplied by 2. If you multiply this QF by 2, then you will have the contribution of the entire flange. Then answer will be VBHT over 2I. So we can say that shear flow at the junction of the web is equal to 2 times of the shear flow contributed by the half flange or shear flow contributed by the entire flange. Similarly, if you will substitute the y value, its maximum value, which will be h by 2, then we will have the maximum magnitude of the shear stress along the neutral axis. So if you substitute the y value h by 2, so you will have this expression. And further you will say that if you multiply the y inner side, this parameter is yh, and then you will have the minus y square. So y is the variable. It means that the shear distribution of shear stress in the web is the quadratic function of y value, or the shear stress varies parabolically along the length of web from the junction to this neutral axis, because shear stress is the function of second degree function of y. So note that the shear stresses or shear flow varies parabolically throughout the depth of the web and attaining the maximum value along the neutral axis. In the flange, shear stresses is parallel to x-axis and contribute nothing or negligibly to the total force parallel to y direction. What does it say? It says that, just like we have contributed, it says in the flanges, direction of shear flow is in horizontal direction or in the x direction, and there is no shear flow produced across the thickness, because we are assuming that thickness is very small. So contribution of the shear force or shear flow along the thickness direction will be very small. So shear flow always directing along the length of element, either along the flange or in the direction of web. And across the thickness direction, we assume that there is no shear flow. Or regarding the direction of the shear flow in the web, so with respect to top part, so this is the web with respect to top part. So when we consider this cutting section over here, so this is the resisting shear force which is acting above this cutting layer. It means that if I want to compute its complementary component, so its complementary stress component will be acting in downward direction. But that would be acting in upward direction, because complementary stress component is acting. So the horizontal shear stress is acting toward the corner, so complementary stress is also acting upward direction. So you can say that that is the direction of shear flow with respect to the top surface, or maybe above the neutral axis. In the same way, I would like to show this direction of the complementary shear stresses with respect to the bottom part. So with respect to bottom part, like here, So actually the bottom of the neutral axis, it is subjected to tensile stresses. It means that this force will be in this direction. So the force will be reverse. So this dF force, it is acting on the opposite direction. F2. So it means that their balancing force is on this top surface will be on this side, and the complementary stress component will be acting downward side. So it means that in case of the web, sorry, I have said this should be on the opposite direction. What mistake I have considered? Let me check again what mistake I have considered. So in this portion F2, yes. So with respect to bottom, this would be the wave. So resisting balancing component, they must also be in the same direction. So actually, I want to show that whether you are considering the top web above the neutral axis or below the neutral axis, direction of the shear flow will either be in the upward or downward direction. So this diagram I will sketch again for this bottom portion, because this will be F2 and this will be F1. So we have got the direction in upward. So this F2 will be in this direction. It was correct. Actually, I have sketched the correct earlier also. Okay. So yes. Why I'm unable to copy this? So this will be the F2. This will be the F1 here. Yes, I have sketched it correct actually earlier also. So this will be here. So complementary stress component should be upward. Hello. अच्छा वो 62 का रोबोट होता है वो तीन में तो ऐड है तीन में तो है so next is तीन में है लेकिन मुझे ये नहीं पता इसने कितनी क्लासें दी हैं या कितनी नहीं दी at the junction of the web and flange shear stress in the web is twice of the shear stresses in the flange. So we have already proved this thing. So this is the shear stress in the flange we have computed in the half line. This value we have computed VBH over 4I, which is half land shear flow. And shear stress in the web we have determined this VBH over 2I. So if we are cutting this section here at this point, also cut the flange. So we will have resisting shear forces or stresses in the flange and also resisting shear stresses in the web. The total resisting shear force or the total resisting shear stresses acting in the flanges must be equal to the total shear stresses or shear flow produced in the web at the junction. So we can use the equilibrium equations. So equilibrium equations are always in terms of forces. So the forces in the web are 2 times of the forces in the flange, for the force in the one flange and the forces on the flange on the left side. So we are considering a segment of the flange which is having a unit length. So if we know the total shear stresses in the flange, we can multiply with the cross-section area. So we are considering thickness of the flange as a TF and we are considering its length as a unit. So VF is equal to shear stresses in the flange multiplied by TF into 1. Similarly, total shear force in the web will be equal to total shear stresses at the junction of the web into the cross-section area of the web, which is TW into 1. So if you substitute the values over here, so we are having this answer. So if the thickness of flange and the web is same, then the shear stresses in web are equal to 2 times of the shear stresses in the flange. But if the thickness of the web they are not same, then the ratio of the shear stresses in the web to the flange may be equal to the shear force 2 times of the thickness of the flange to the thickness of web. So here I would like to have a 5-minute break.